"Wait, what are you doing?" the Apache stammered. She looked down, flushed, whispered, "Please help me." The rain had started just after sunset. It was not heavy, but steady enough to blur the road and make the streetlights glow in soft yellow circles. Captain Daniel Hayes tightened his grip on the steering wheel as his car moved along the quiet highway. It had been a long day at the base. Training exercises had stretched longer than expected, and his mind was still filled with maps, radio calls, and instructions. All he wanted now was a warm shower and a few hours of sleep. The road was nearly empty. Most people were already home, safe from the weather. Daniel liked driving at night. It gave him time to think. The sound of rain tapping gently against the windshield usually calmed him, but tonight felt different. There was a strange stillness in the air. As he approached a bend in the road, his headlights swept across an old bus stop on the side. It was just a small shelter with a metal bench and a faded advertisement on the back wall. Normally, he would not pay attention to it. But something caught his eye. Someone was standing there. At first he thought he was mistaken. Maybe it was just a shadow. But as he drove closer, he saw clearly that it was a young woman. She stood near the edge of the shelter, not sitting, not using her phone, just standing. She looked small against the dark night. Daniel slowed down without even realizing it. Why would someone be waiting for a bus at this hour? The last bus had passed long ago. He knew this road well. There was nothing nearby except open land and a few distant buildings. He drove past the bus stop. For a few seconds he kept going. His eyes stayed on the road, but his mind stayed behind. Maybe she was just waiting for someone. Maybe it was none of his business. But something did not sit right with him. In his line of work, he had learned to trust his instincts. Small details often meant something important. He had noticed the way she kept looking down the road, then behind her, then at the ground. It was not the behavior of someone calm and patient. It was the behavior of someone unsure. Daniel sighed softly and checked his rearview mirror. The bus stop was getting smaller in the distance. The rain continued falling. The world felt too quiet. He made a decision. He slowed the car, signaled, and carefully turned around at the next safe spot. His heart beat a little faster. He was not afraid, but cautious. Approaching a stranger at night required care. As he drove back toward the bus stop, he noticed her again. This time, she seemed even more nervous. The bright headlights of his car must have caught her attention. She stepped slightly backward, almost as if preparing to run. Daniel parked a few feet away, making sure not to block her path. He turned off the engine but left the headlights on so the area stayed lit. He did not want to frighten her. For a moment, he stayed inside the car, thinking about how to approach her. He did not want to appear threatening. He took a deep breath and stepped out slowly, keeping his movements calm and open. The rain touched his jacket as he walked toward the shelter. The young woman noticed him clearly now. She took another small step back. Her arms wrapped around herself as if she was cold, though the night was not very cold. Daniel stopped at a respectful distance. "Wait," he said gently, raising one hand slightly to show he meant no harm. "What are you doing out here?" His voice was not loud, but in the quiet night it sounded clear. She did not answer immediately. Under the soft streetlight he could see her face more clearly. She looked young, maybe in her early 20s. Her hair was slightly wet from the rain. Her eyes avoided his. Her cheeks were flushed, not from the cold, but from something else. Fear, embarrassment, or both. Daniel suddenly realized how this must look to her. A stranger in the dark walking toward her. He quickly added, "I'm not here to cause trouble. I just saw you standing alone and wanted to make sure you're okay." Still, she remained silent. The only sounds were the rain and distant thunder rolling far away. He noticed her hands were trembling slightly. Not dramatic, but enough to show she was under stress. She glanced down at the ground, then at the road, then back down again. For a brief moment, Daniel considered stepping back and leaving. Maybe she did not want help. Maybe he was making things worse. Then she spoke. Her voice was barely louder than the rain. "Please help me." The words were soft, almost like a breath carried by the wind. But he heard them clearly. Something in his chest tightened. This was not someone simply waiting for a ride. This was someone who felt lost. He took another small step closer, but still kept distance. "What happened?" he asked gently. She swallowed as if trying to gather courage. I was supposed to meet someone," she said, her voice shaking slightly. "They didn't come." Daniel nodded slowly, encouraging her to continue without pressure. "My phone died," she added, "and I don't know how to get back." Her eyes finally met his for a brief second. They were filled with worry and regret. Daniel glanced around. The area was empty. No cars were passing. No buildings were open. Leaving her here alone did not feel right. "Okay," he said calmly. Let's slow down. First, you're safe right now. There's no rush. Do you need water? He walked back to his car, retrieved a small bottle of water from the passenger seat, and handed it to her carefully. She took it with both hands, as if holding something precious. Thank you, she whispered. He could tell she was embarrassed. Many people struggled to ask for help. Pride and fear often make it harder. What's your name? He asked. Aisha, she replied softly. That's a nice name, Daniel said with a small, reassuring smile. I'm Daniel. The rain began to fall a little heavier. Tiny drops bounced off the metal roof of the shelter, creating a soft tapping sound. You shouldn't stay out here in this weather, he said. If you're comfortable, you can sit inside my car while we figure this out. The heater's on. The doors will stay unlocked. He made sure to phrase it carefully, giving her control over the decision. Aisha hesitated. Trust is not built in seconds. She looked at the car, then at him. Daniel stayed quiet, allowing her time. After a long pause, she nodded slowly. They walked toward the car together. He opened the passenger door and stepped back, letting her enter first. Once she was seated, he walked around to the driver's side and got in. Inside the car, the soft hum of the heater filled the space. The windows were slightly foggy from the warmth. For the first time, Aisha seemed to relax a little. Not fully, but enough to breathe more steadily. Daniel started the engine again, but did not drive. He wanted to understand the situation clearly before moving anywhere. Tell me what happened, he said gently. She looked down at her hands, twisting the bottle cap slowly. And in that quiet car, with rain falling outside and uncertainty hanging in the air, Aisha began to explain how she had ended up alone on a dark roadside, wishing she had made a different choice. That rainy night, which had started as an ordinary drive home for Daniel, was turning into something neither of them had expected. Inside the car, the sound of rain against the windows felt softer now. The heater blew warm air, slowly drying the drops on Aisha's hair and sleeves. For a few moments, neither of them spoke. The silence was not uncomfortable, but heavy. It carried questions, fear, and thoughts that were difficult to say out loud. Daniel kept his hands lightly on the steering wheel. He did not want to rush her. He had learned long ago that when someone feels overwhelmed, the best thing you can give them is patience. Aisha stared at the water bottle in her hands. Her fingers were still trembling slightly, though she was trying to hide it. You don't have to tell me everything at once, Daniel said gently. Just start wherever you can. She took a slow breath. I thought it was a good opportunity, she began quietly. It didn't feel wrong at first. Daniel listened carefully. She explained that a few weeks earlier she had seen a job advertisement online. It promised quick training, good pay, and housing support in another city. The message seemed professional. The person who contacted her spoke politely and confidently. They told her she had been selected after a simple online interview. At home, things have been difficult, she admitted. My father's business hasn't been doing well. My mother tries not to show it, but I know they worry about money. I wanted to help. Her voice carried both love and regret. He understood that feeling. Many people want to solve problems quickly, especially when it involves family. They said I could start immediately, she continued. They told me not to tell too many people yet because the position was limited and competitive. I thought that made it sound more real. She gave a small, embarrassed smile, as if realizing now how strange that sounded. They asked me to come here tonight to meet a representative who would take me to the office in the morning, she said. They told me to bring my documents and some basic clothes. Daniel felt a quiet concern growing inside him. He kept his face calm so she would not feel judged. When I arrived, she said, her voice becoming softer, no one was here. She tried calling the number again and again, but it went unanswered. Then her phone battery died completely. I didn't know what to do, she said. I didn't want to go back home. I felt ashamed. Ashamed of what? Of making a mistake? She replied. Of leaving without properly explaining. I argued with my parents before I left. I told them they didn't understand me. I said I was tired of waiting for things to get better. Her eyes filled with tears, but she blinked them away quickly. Daniel could imagine the scene. Raised voices, frustration, a door closing too hard, words spoken that could not be taken back. Did they know where you were going? He asked gently. She shook her head. I told them I was meeting a friend. The rain outside grew heavier, drumming softly on the roof of the car. Daniel thought carefully before speaking. Aisha, sometimes when something sounds too easy, it's important to double-check. Not because you're wrong, but because there are people who take advantage of hope. She nodded slowly. I know that now. He could see she was not foolish. She was simply young and eager to fix problems quickly. "Do you still have the messages?" he asked. She reached into her bag and pulled out her phone. It was completely dark. "It died before I could take screenshots." "That's okay," he said. "Do you remember the name they used?" Daniel did not react strongly, but the name felt familiar in a troubling way. He had heard something similar mentioned during a recent briefing at the base about online job scams targeting young people. He reached for his own phone and checked his messages quietly. Earlier that week, a community alert had been shared among local officials. It warned about suspicious recruiters offering quick jobs and asking people to meet in isolated locations. The name Aisha mentioned matched part of that alert. Daniel felt a chill that had nothing to do with the rain. He looked at her again. She was staring at her reflection in the window, lost in thought. "You were brave to ask for help," he said after a moment. She looked surprised. "I didn't feel brave. Sometimes bravery doesn't feel strong," he replied. "Sometimes it feels scared, but still choosing to speak." She gave a small, uncertain smile. He decided to be honest, but calm. "There have been reports about fake job offers in this area. I'm not saying that's exactly what happened here, but it's possible." "Fake?" "It's still under investigation," he said carefully. "But meeting someone at night in a quiet place, that's usually not how professional companies operate." She swallowed hard. "So I was?" He shook his head gently. "You were hopeful. There's a difference." That sentence seemed to ease something inside her. For a few seconds, the weight of what could have happened settled between them. The thought of being alone in that bus stop for much longer made her shiver. "I kept thinking maybe I was just early," she said. "Or maybe they were delayed. I didn't want to believe I had been tricked." Daniel understood denial. It often comes before acceptance. "You're not the first person this has happened to," he said. "And you won't be the last. The important thing is that you're safe right now." The word safe echoed in her mind. Safe. She had not felt safe for hours. Standing alone in the dark, every passing shadow had seemed larger than it was. Every distant sound had made her heart race. Now, inside the warm car, she finally felt grounded. "What should I do now?" she asked quietly. "That depends," Daniel replied. "Do you want to go home tonight?" Pride struggled with relief. "I don't know how to face them," she admitted. "Parents worry," Daniel said softly. "When they're afraid, it can sound like anger. But most of the time, it's just fear." She stared down at her hands again. "I thought leaving would prove I could handle things on my own," she said. "But I just made everything worse. Learning from it does." Outside, a car finally passed on the road, its headlights briefly lighting the inside of Daniel's vehicle before disappearing into the night. The world kept moving. Daniel made a quiet decision. He would not leave her until she had a clear, safe plan. First, he said, "Let's charge your phone. I have a cable." He handed it to her, and she plugged her phone into the car. The screen lit up slowly. Notifications began appearing one after another. Missed calls. Messages from her mother, messages from her father. Her breath caught. "They've been calling," she whispered. Daniel nodded gently. "That means they care." Tears finally slipped down her cheeks, but this time they were mixed with relief. In that small car, on a rainy night, two strangers sat side by side. One had stopped simply because something felt wrong. The other had whispered for help because she had run out of options. What started as a quiet drive home had turned into something much deeper. And as Aisha stared at the glowing screen of her phone, she realized that sometimes the hardest step is not asking for help from a stranger. Sometimes it is going back home and saying, "I was wrong." But she was no longer alone in facing that step. The car felt quieter than before, even though the rain had not stopped. Aisha's phone was charging, and the screen kept lighting up with new notifications. Missed calls, text messages, voice notes. Each sound made her heart beat faster. Daniel watched her carefully, but did not rush her. He understood that this moment was important. The truth was no longer just a feeling. It was becoming clear. "Are they still messaging?" he asked softly. She nodded. "My mother, she sent so many messages." "Do you want to read one?" he asked. Aisha hesitated, then opened one slowly. Her mother's message was simple. "Where are you? Please answer. We are worried." There was no anger in the words, no blame, only concern. Her eyes filled with tears again. "I thought they would be angry," she whispered. "Sometimes we expect the worst because we feel guilty," Daniel replied calmly. "But worry usually comes before anger." She wiped her face and took a deep breath. For a moment she seemed stronger, as if the truth had given her clarity instead of fear. Just then, Daniel's own phone buzzed. He glanced at the screen. It was a message from a fellow officer at the base. Earlier, he had quietly sent a short message asking about the name Aisha had mentioned. Now there was a reply. Daniel opened it carefully. The message confirmed that local authorities had been tracking a group using false job offers to attract young people. They often asked them to meet in isolated areas. Investigations were ongoing. The message advised anyone with related information to report it immediately. Daniel felt a heavy weight settle in his chest. He looked at Aisha. She was unaware of how serious this might have been. For a moment, he imagined what could have happened if no one had driven by, if she had stayed longer, if someone else had arrived instead of him. He pushed that thought away. The important thing was that she was safe now. "Aisha," he said gently, "I need to tell you something. I checked with someone I trust," he continued. "The name you mentioned is connected to an investigation. It seems this was not a real job offer." Her face went pale. "So it was a trap?" she asked, her voice barely steady. "It appears that way," he answered calmly. "But you were lucky. You listened to your instincts enough to ask for help." The rain outside suddenly sounded louder. "I feel so foolish," she said after a long pause. "You're not foolish," Daniel replied firmly but kindly. "You were trying to help your family." "That's not foolish. That's caring. But I didn't think carefully. I ignored small signs. They told me not to tell anyone. They rushed me. I thought that meant the opportunity was special." Daniel nodded slowly. That's how these things often work. They create urgency. They make it seem exclusive. They know people don't want to miss out." Aisha leaned back in the seat, staring at the ceiling of the car. If you hadn't stopped..." She didn't finish the sentence. Daniel didn't need her to. Instead of focusing on what could have happened, he chose to focus on what should happen next. "We need to report this properly," he said. "Not just for you, but so others don't fall into the same situation." She looked at him uncertainly. "Will I get into trouble?" "You didn't do anything wrong. You were misled. Reporting it helps everyone." For the first time since she got into the car, there was a small spark of determination in her eyes. "If it can stop someone else from standing alone like I was," she said quietly, "then I want to report it." Fear had not completely disappeared, but courage was beginning to grow. He made a call to the local non-emergency contact line and briefly explained the situation. He kept it simple, sharing the name, the meeting location, and the time. The officer on the line thanked him and said they would send someone to collect more details.
Aisha listened carefully.
She seemed nervous, but not panicked. When Daniel ended the call, she let out a long breath. "It feels real now," she said. "Yes," he replied. "But real also means manageable. Problems are easier to handle when we face them." "Why did you stop?" The question surprised him slightly. "I almost didn't," he admitted honestly. "I was tired. I just wanted to go home. But something felt off. I've learned to trust that feeling." She gave a faint smile. "I'm glad you did." For a few minutes, they sat in silence again. This silence felt different. It was no longer filled with fear, but reflection. Outside, the rain slowly began to lighten. The heavy drops turned into a softer drizzle. Aisha checked her phone again. More messages from her parents. One from her younger brother. "Please, come home." "I didn't realize they would worry this much," she said softly. "Families don't always show love in perfect ways," Daniel replied. "But when something feels wrong, they feel it too." She nodded. "Do you think they'll forgive me?" she asked quietly. "There's nothing to forgive," he said. "You didn't harm anyone. You made a choice that didn't work out. That happens to everyone." Data, passing down the words, "Please make sure that I can say about it again, because I've never received anything from you." The screen showed. Mother calling. "You don't have to answer right away," Daniel said gently. She looked at the screen, then at him. "I can't avoid it forever," she whispered. She pressed the answer button and held the phone to her ear. "Hello?" Daniel could hear a faint voice from the other side, filled with relief and emotion. "Where are you?" her mother asked. Aisha's voice shook. "I'm safe." The word safe seemed to calm her mother immediately. Aisha explained briefly, not everything, but enough. She admitted she had made a mistake and asked if they could talk when she returned home. There was a pause. Then her mother said something that made Aisha close her eyes in relief. "Just come home." No shouting, just concern. When the call ended, Aisha wiped her tears again, but this time they were different. They carried relief, not fear. Daniel started the engine once more. I'll drive you, he said. As the car pulled away from the bus stop, Aisha looked back at it through the rear window. Just an hour ago, that place had felt like the center of her world. Now it looked small and distant. She realized something important in that moment. Desperation can cloud judgment, hope can sometimes hide danger, but asking for help is never weakness. And as the car moved forward through the wet streets, she felt something she had not felt all evening. Not shame, but a quiet strength beginning to form inside her. The streets were quieter now. The rain had almost stopped, leaving the roads shiny under the streetlights. Water reflected the yellow glow like broken pieces of glass. Daniel drove carefully, not too fast, not too slow. Aisha sat beside him, holding her phone tightly in her hands as if it were something fragile. Neither of them spoke for a few minutes. The earlier tension had softened, but something heavier had taken its place, the reality of going home. Aisha stared out the window. Familiar buildings slowly began to appear as they entered her neighborhood. Small shops with metal shutters closed for the night, a bakery on the corner, a narrow street where children usually played in the evenings. Everything looked the same. But she felt different. Her heart began beating faster the closer they got to her house. I don't know what to say when I see them, she admitted quietly. You don't need perfect words, Daniel replied calmly. You just need honest ones. She nodded, but her fingers kept twisting the edge of her scarf nervously. As they turned onto her street, she saw something that made her chest tighten. The lights were on. Not just one room. All of them. Her house stood near the end of the lane. Even from a distance, she could see shadows moving behind the curtains. They're awake, she whispered. They've been waiting, Daniel said gently. He slowed the car and parked a short distance from her gate. He did not want to drive too close without her being ready. This was her moment. Aisha took a deep breath but did not move. What if they're disappointed? She asked. Daniel looked at her seriously but kindly. Fear is stronger than disappointment. She swallowed hard. For a few seconds she just sat there, gathering courage. Then she reached for the door handle, but her hand paused in midair. Will you walk with me to the gate? She asked softly. Of course, he replied without hesitation. They stepped out of the car together. The air smelled fresh after the rain. The world felt clean and still. As they walked toward the house, Aisha noticed the front door open suddenly. Her mother rushed out first. Behind her came her father and younger brother. For a moment, no one spoke. Then her mother closed the distance between them and pulled Aisha into a tight embrace. You're safe, her mother kept repeating, her voice shaking. Aisha felt her own tears fall freely now. She hugged her mother back just as tightly. I'm sorry, she whispered. I'm so sorry. Her father stepped forward next. His face looked tired, but not angry. His eyes showed relief more than anything else. Come inside, he said quietly. Before entering, Aisha turned slightly toward Daniel. Her father noticed him then and stepped closer. Thank you, her father said sincerely, extending his hand. Daniel shook it firmly. She was alone near the highway. I just wanted to make sure she got home safely. Her father nodded, understanding more than was said. You did more than that, he replied. For a moment Daniel considered leaving, but Aisha looked back at him, silently asking him to stay a little longer. Her father noticed that look. Please, come in for a few minutes, he said respectfully. Daniel agreed. Inside the house, the air felt warm and familiar. The smell of tea lingered in the living room. A small table lamp cast a soft light across the sofa. Aisha sat between her parents. Her brother stood nearby, watching her closely as if afraid she might disappear again. Her father spoke first. Where did you go? He asked gently. There was no anger in his voice, only concern. Aisha looked down for a moment, then raised her head. I thought I found a job, she said honestly. I wanted to help. I didn't want to be a burden. Her mother's eyes widened slightly. A burden? You are our daughter. I know, Aisha said quickly, but I see how hard things have been. I wanted to fix it fast. Her father sighed deeply. Fast solutions are not always safe ones, he said quietly. She nodded. I understand that now. Daniel sat quietly, allowing the family to speak. This was not his conversation to lead. Aisha explained everything. The online advertisement, the promises, the meeting point, the phone dying, the fear of realizing no one was coming. Her mother covered her mouth in shock. Her father's expression became serious but controlled. You should have told us, he said. I know, she replied. I was afraid you would stop me. We would have asked questions, her father corrected gently, not stopped you without reason. The difference in those words mattered. For the first time that night, Aisha fully understood something. Her parents were not against her independence. They were against danger. Daniel finally spoke up softly. There have been reports of similar fake offers in the area. It's good she's home safely. We will report it properly. Daniel nodded. That would help others. A silence followed. But it was not uncomfortable. It was thoughtful. Don't leave like that again, he said, trying to sound strong. I won't. Her mother went to the kitchen and returned with a cup of tea for Daniel. You brought our daughter home, she said warmly. Please accept this. He accepted it politely. As the family continued talking, something shifted in the room. Earlier there had been fear. Now there was understanding. Aisha realized that running away had not solved anything. It had only created more worry. But facing the mistake together had created something stronger. Trust. After finishing his tea, Daniel stood up. I should let you rest, he said. Aisha quickly stood as well. Thank you, she said sincerely. Not just for stopping, but for staying. He smiled slightly. Take your time with decisions next time, and always tell someone where you're going. I will, she promised. At the door, her father shook Daniel's hand once more. You didn't just help her, he said quietly. You helped all of us. The rain had completely stopped now. The sky was clearing and a few stars were visible. He walked back to his car feeling thoughtful. Sometimes, he realized, the most important missions are not planned. They are moments when you simply choose to stop, instead of driving past. Inside the house, Aisha sat with her family, talking honestly for the first time in weeks. There were difficult words, yes, but there was also listening. And, in that small living room under warm light, a stronger bond began to grow. Not because everything had gone right, but because they faced what had almost gone wrong. That night did not end with anger. It ended with understanding. Sunlight entered through the curtains, soft and warm, replacing the fear that had filled the rooms the night before. The air seemed lighter. Aisha woke up slowly, staring at the ceiling, replaying everything in her mind. The bus stop, the rain, Daniel's voice, her mother's hug. For a moment she wondered if it had all been a dream. Then she looked at her phone on the bedside table. It was real. She sat up and took a deep breath. Her chest no longer felt tight with panic. Instead, she felt something new. Clarity. Downstairs, she could hear her mother in the kitchen. The normal sounds of morning, cups touching plates, water boiling. Her father clearing his throat as he read the newspaper. Felt comforting. Ordinary, safe. When she walked into the kitchen, her mother looked up immediately. Their eyes met. There was no anger in her mother's expression, only softness. Did you sleep? Her mother asked gently. A little, Aisha replied. Her father folded the newspaper and looked at her seriously but calmly. We will go to the local office today and report the details, he said. It may help protect others. Aisha nodded. I'll come with you. Her father studied her for a moment, then gave a small approving nod. Good. There was no lecture, just quiet understanding. Over breakfast, the conversation felt different than before. Not tense. Honest. Aisha spoke openly about why she had felt so pressured to find quick money. She admitted she had been comparing herself to others online, seeing their success and thinking she was behind in life. Her father listened carefully. Life is not a race, he said, and success that comes too fast without effort often brings trouble. Her mother added softly, We would rather struggle together than see you take risks alone. Those words stayed in Aisha's heart. Later that day, they went together to report the fake job offer. Aisha shared everything she remembered. The messages, the meeting location, the time. The officer thanked her for coming forward and assured her that speaking up could prevent others from being misled. Walking out of the office, Aisha felt stronger. Instead of hiding from her mistake, she had faced it. In the following days, something inside her began to change. She stopped looking for shortcuts. Instead, she started researching real skill programs in her city. She spent hours reading about courses, certifications, and training centers. She asked questions. She checked reviews. She discussed options with her parents instead of making decisions alone. One evening, she showed her father a local training program focused on digital skills and small business management. It's not quick money, she said honestly, but it's real. Real is better. She enrolled the following week. The first day of class felt strange. She walked into a room filled with students from different backgrounds. Some were older than her, some younger. Many had stories of their own struggles. For the first time, she realized she was not alone in feeling pressure to succeed. The instructor spoke about patience, planning, and protecting oneself from online fraud. When that topic came up, Aisha felt her cheeks warm slightly, but instead of staying silent, she raised her hand. She shared a short version of her experience, not dramatically, not emotionally, just honestly. The room grew quiet as others listened. After class, 2 students approached her privately. One admitted she had almost responded to a similar job offer. The other said her cousin had lost money to something similar. Aisha understood something powerful in that moment. Her mistake was no longer just a mistake. It had become a lesson, not only for her, but for others. Weeks passed. She worked hard in her classes. She learned about budgeting, online safety, professional communication, and realistic career growth. She stopped chasing promises and started building skills. At home, her relationship with her parents grew stronger. They talked more openly now. When she felt overwhelmed, she said so. When they felt worried, they explained why instead of simply raising their voices. Trust, once shaken, was slowly rebuilding. One afternoon, while walking home from class, her phone buzzed with an unknown number. For a split second, her heart jumped. The memory of that rainy night flashed through her mind. But this time, she did not feel fear. She ignored the call. Later, she blocked the number. Small action, big difference. A few months later, her training center invited her to speak at a small awareness session about online scams and safe job searching. The audience included students and parents. Standing at the front of the room, holding a microphone, she felt nervous but steady. She described how easy it is to believe something when you are desperate for change. She explained the warning signs: urgency, secrecy, unrealistic promises. She ended with one simple message: always tell someone you trust before meeting anyone new. Independence does not mean isolation. After the session, several parents thanked her. One mother said, "Because of your story, I will talk more openly with my daughter." Meanwhile, Daniel continued his routine at the base. Training flights, long hours, briefings. The world moved forward. But sometimes, when he drove past that same bus stop, he remembered that rainy night, turning the wavering car around, and he felt grateful he had listened to that small voice inside him. One evening, months later, he received a message from an unknown number. It was Aisha. She thanked him again. She told him about her course, about the awareness session, about how she felt stronger now. He replied simply, "Proud of you. Keep going." Back in her home, Aisha placed her phone down after reading his message. She smiled quietly. Her life had not transformed overnight. There was no sudden wealth, no dramatic change, but there was something more important: wisdom. She understood now that quick promises often hide empty results. That family arguments can be repaired with honesty, that asking for help is strength, not weakness. And most of all, she understood that one small decision, like someone choosing to stop their car on a rainy night, can change the direction of a life. Cars still passed it every day, but for Aisha, it would always represent a turning point. Not the place where she almost made a terrible mistake, but the place where she chose to accept help and begin again. Her story did not end with fear. It began with it, and it moved forward with courage.